There are industrial parts that seem simple until they are observed up close. A spring is one of them. In a common car, it barely draws attention. In a mining truck, however, it becomes a beast of steel. It can measure almost the same as a person, be born from an incandescent bar several centimeters thick, and end up enduring for years the punishment of hundreds of tons over destroyed roads, abrasive dust, brutal potholes, and impacts that would shatter any ordinary machine. Nothing in this component is small. Nothing is manufactured with room for error. Each turn of the spiral, each heat treatment, and each shot peening impact decides whether the suspension will absorb the violence of the terrain or if it will fail under the load. Behind that piece there are furnaces, presses, boiling oil, giant rollers, and extreme metallurgical precision. That is how a mining truck suspension is manufactured. That is how the 200-kilo spring is born. Everything begins long before the spring takes its spiral shape. It begins with a straight bar, solid, heavy, almost brutal in its appearance. It is special spring steel. Not just any steel will do. The material must withstand continuous deformations, immense loads, and millions of compression cycles without breaking or losing its elasticity. That is why alloys with elements such as chromium, silicon, and vanadium are used, designed to offer a difficult combination to achieve hardness and flexibility at the same time. At first glance, that bar looks like an inert piece, but in reality, it is the raw material for a component that will end up working in one of the most aggressive environments in the industry. A mining truck does not travel on smooth asphalt. It works on tracks of crushed rock, mud, irregular slopes, dust, and constant vibrations. It can carry dozens upon dozens of tons and keep moving for entire workdays. Every meter traveled strikes the suspension with repeated violence. If the spring is mediocre, the machine fatigues too soon, the chassis suffers, the axles are punished, and the driver receives continuous impacts. If the spring is well manufactured, that same metal monster can endure endless workdays. The first critical operation is heating. A bar of this thickness cannot be bent cold. If an attempt were made to do so, cracks, internal stresses, or direct fracture would appear. That is why the bar enters a preheating furnace where it reaches temperatures close to 1000 degrees. There, the steel acquires an intense red color. It no longer looks like a rigid and impossible bar. It begins to behave like a malleable metal, capable of being guided and transformed. The heating must be uniform. That detail decides a large part of the final result. If one area receives less heat, it will remain harder and offer resistance to bending. If another overheats, it may lose part of its properties. In a component that must later deform regularly under monstrous loads, that difference is unacceptable. That is why the bar advances inside the furnace with precise control of temperature and time. It is not enough to get it red hot. It is necessary to ensure that its entire mass reaches a homogeneous condition. When it leaves the furnace, the spectacle is almost primitive. A white-hot mass giving off fierce heat, moved with equipment capable of withstanding thermal radiation and the weight of the piece. At that moment, the coiler enters the scene, a large machine designed to force the hot steel to curve around a mandrel. The bar advances between rollers that push it, contain it, and force it to obey an exact geometry. What seemed like an impossible bar begins to close in on itself, turn after turn, until it becomes a gigantic spiral. Here, one of the most impressive keys of the process appears: uniformity. The distance between coils is not a visual detail. It is an essential mechanical condition. If one turn is tighter than another, the distribution of stresses changes. If one coil is misaligned, the spring will work irregularly, under the weight of a mining truck that ends in premature wear, deformation, or breakage. That is why the machine controls the feeding speed, the force of the rollers, the temperature of the metal, and the geometry of each curve. The incandescent steel rotates slowly and turns into a recognizable shape. It is no longer a bar, nor is it yet a finished spring. It is an intermediate piece, enormous, living, still soft from the heat, with an elastic memory that is just beginning to be built. Its size is impressive, its mass as well. That metallic body must later be loaded with heat treatments, surface reinforcements, and quality controls that turn it into a component capable of surviving in heavy mining. When the winding ends, the giant already has its definitive silhouette, but it is still vulnerable. It has shape, not final strength. It cannot work yet. It is not yet ready to support the weight of the truck or the violence of the terrain. What comes now no longer consists of bending the steel. It consists of transforming its internal structure. Once the spring leaves the coiler, it still retains an enormous amount of heat. That state is not wasted. It is the exact moment for one of the most decisive operations of the entire manufacturing process: quenching. The piece is submerged almost immediately into a large vat of oil. The contrast is brutal. The steel arrives near 1,000 degrees. The oil is much colder. In a matter of seconds, the metal loses temperature at an extreme speed. From the outside, the process looks like a controlled explosion. Steam, smoke, bubbling, an aggressive hiss. But what is important is happening inside the steel. The rapid cooling changes its crystalline structure. That change grants it great hardness. The spring begins to become what it really needs to be: a resistant piece capable of opposing permanent deformation. The problem is that hardness alone is not enough. Steel quenched to the extreme can become too brittle, and a brittle spring is a threat. Instead of flexing and returning to its original shape, it could crack or split under a violent impact. For a mining truck, that would be catastrophic. The suspension must be hard, yes, but also tough. It must absorb energy, withstand fatigue, and keep working. For that reason, after quenching comes tempering. Tempering consists of reheating the spring, though at a lower temperature. It is not about softening it completely, but about relieving internal stresses and recovering a more useful balance between hardness and elasticity. It is a kind of metallurgical negotiation. The steel has already gained strength. Now it must gain stability. For hours, the spring remains in a controlled thermal range. There, its internal structure is partially rearranged. It comes out less brittle, more reliable, and much more fit to withstand repeated load cycles. This point is fundamental because the real life of a spring is not defined by a single blow. It is defined by millions. Every pothole, every vibration, every loaded braking, every turn on an irregular track compresses and releases the suspension. That continuous punishment receives a technical name that in practice means progressive exhaustion of the material: fatigue. A spring can seem perfect on its first day of work and start to fail months later if it was not treated correctly. Quenching and tempering are not decorative steps. They are the difference between a reliable component and a future break. After tempering comes another vital stage: shot peening. At first glance, it looks like an attack. Thousands of small steel spheres impact the surface of the spring at high speed. The piece receives a continuous bombardment. However, the goal is not to erode it, but to strengthen it. Each impact produces a microscopic deformation that compresses the surface layer of the metal. That surface compression helps to slow the initiation of fatigue cracks, which usually appear precisely on the surface. It is a brilliant solution. The spring will work for years, expanding and compressing. The most dangerous cracks are born in small, almost invisible defects. Shot peening reduces that vulnerability by leaving a metallic skin that is more resistant to the initiation of fractures. In industrial terms, that operation can notably increase the component's useful life. Once these phases are finished, the spring is no longer just a correct shape. Now it possesses an internal structure prepared for heavy work and a reinforced surface to resist fatigue. Even so, manufacturing does not conclude with the heat treatment. A piece destined for mining must undergo dimensional controls, hardness verification, visual inspections and tests to confirm that each coil has the proper spacing, that there are no manufacturing defects, and that the mechanical response is within the required parameters. The reason is simple. In a mine, each piece fulfills a disproportionately important function. A defective spring does not only compromise its own integrity, it can alter the dynamic behavior of the truck, overload other parts of the suspension, generate excessive bounces, increase tire wear, and affect the general safety of the machine. That is why the margin for error is minimal. At this point in the process, the spring already has almost everything necessary to support tons. It already has shape, hardness, controlled elasticity, and surface resistance. However, the other half of the system is still missing, because a mining suspension does not depend solely on the spring. The spring loads and returns energy, but someone has to master that brutal movement. That is where the component that transforms the bounce into control enters. In mining equipment, the shock absorber is not a small auxiliary piece. It is a large, robust hydraulic cylinder designed to convert part of the movement's energy into controlled resistance. Its principle is elegant. A piston moves inside a cylinder filled with oil. By doing so, it forces the fluid to pass through calibrated ducts and valves. That restricted passage generates resistance. In other words, the movement is slowed down. That basic idea is simple. The complexity lies in the fine-tuning. The shock absorber must respond differently depending on the violence of the impact. A slow movement is not treated the same as a severe impact against a rock or a fall onto broken ground. For this reason, it incorporates different valves and ducts, some for low compression and extension speeds, others for much more sudden events. The hydraulic system does not only resist, it also modulates. It decides when to brake, when to yield, and how to prevent the truck's structure from receiving a destructive jolt. Inside the shock absorber, another key element appears: gas, normally nitrogen. Its function is to avoid phenomena such as cavitation, which can occur when the oil moves with violence and tends to form bubbles. If that happens, the hydraulic behavior loses stability and the component degrades. Nitrogen helps maintain the proper internal pressure and compensate for volume variations during the movement of the rod. The rod, for its part, must resist extreme wear, continuous friction, and contamination. Therefore, it usually has hardened surfaces and coatings capable of withstanding millions of cycles. In mining, fine and abrasive dust is always present. It penetrates wherever it can. It gets into seals, gaskets, and mechanisms. Any failure in tightness ends up affecting the system's performance. So the complete suspension does not depend only on steel and oil. It also depends on sealing, precision, and materials prepared for hostile environments. When spring and shock absorber work together, the true mechanical miracle appears. The spring supports the load and absorbs the initial impact. The shock absorber controls the speed at which that movement occurs and prevents the system from bouncing out of control. The result is a gigantic mass capable of moving across brutal terrain without destroying itself in a few hours. That balance has enormous consequences. It protects the truck frame. It reduces the punishment on the axle. It improves traction because the wheels maintain better contact with the ground. It decreases operator fatigue. It reduces vibrations in the cabin. And above all, it prolongs the useful life of a machine whose cost and downtime can be astronomical. In mining, stopping a truck due to a suspension breakdown is not a minor nuisance. It can alter the rhythms of loading, transport, maintenance, and production. That is why the manufacturing of these components is so far from being an improvised process. Each large-scale spring is the result of a precise industrial chain: alloy selection, uniform heating, controlled winding, quenching, tempering, shot peening, inspection, integration with hydraulic shock absorbers prepared to work with oil, valves, gas pressure, and high-resistance seals. Nothing is superfluous. Nothing can be done halfway. The most fascinating thing is that all that effort remains hidden when the truck enters operation. From the outside, you only see an immense machine moving forward, loading rock and enduring the terrain. The public observes the bodywork, the giant wheels, the hopper, the dust it kicks up. Few think of the steel spiral that is absorbing every blow beneath the colossal weight. Few imagine the red-hot bar, the rollers bending it, the oil bath, the tempering furnace, or the rain of shot that strengthened its surface. However, there lies the true heart of the daily punishment. A spring of hundreds of kilos that compresses, recovers, and starts again thousands of times, millions of times. Without applause, without protagonism, without room for failure. Because in the world of heavy mining, the difference between a machine that resists and a machine that gives up usually depends on a single piece of steel coiled with absolute precision. And that piece, before carrying mountains, was born as an incandescent bar forced by fire, pressure, and metallurgy to become one of the toughest components in the entire industry.